Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Radio 815. I'm your host. My name is Marcelo Inostroza. As always, I'm joined by my fellow co-host Matt Crandall, and on this week's edition of the show, we'll be talking about Alias Season 3, Episode 1, entitled The Two. So, with all that being said and done and out of the way, Matt, what did you think about this Season 3 premiere of Alias?
So this episode, written by JJ, directed by Ken Olin, like I said in our previous podcast 2 weeks ago, when season 2 ended, I was just like, I gotta see what happens. And this picks up right where we left off with Vaughn and Sydney together, where Vaughn is trying to tell her that she has been gone for 2 years. And I really liked that as this whole episode unfolds, we also are catching up on everything that has happened to all the other characters in this time jump. So we find out that Vaughn thought Sydney was dead, and he has gotten over her, gotten married, and is no longer part of the CIA. He's now a teacher. And it's like, what? And then we find out that Jack is in prison for being a traitor to the country and a terrorist or whatever. And that is like shocking because Sydney's support of her dad is gone. Irina is somewhere, but nobody knows. And then the most shocking thing that they drop on us is that Arvin Sloan is the CEO for a charitable organization called OmniFam. And everybody knows where he is, and he's just living free. And everybody is cool with that because he's turned over a new leaf. And it's like, what the hell is happening? And we find out that Dixon is now the director of their division. Weiss is seemed to have a bigger role. And congrats to Greg Grunberg, who this is the first episode that he's actually in the credits as a series regular. So we know that he's going to have more to do this season. And just the confusion of Sydney this whole episode as she's trying to catch up with everything she missed, and we are as well, is so much fun, but also you're just like, oh my gosh, it feels like there's so much that we missed. To catch up is fun, but also frustrating. But then there are the good moments where, as frustrating as it is that Vaughn is kind of out of the picture at this point, and the dynamic between him and Sid is up in the air. I do like that still the base team is still very similar with Dixon, Weiss, and finding out that Marshall and good old Amanda Foreman did get together and are having a baby. And I just love the scene where Sydney meets with Marshall for the first time, and he's worried that she's not going to remember him. And it's just a funny and touching scene that she's like, no, I remember you. And he's just so thrilled and happy. So I thought it was a good episode that brought us up to speed on everything that they skipped over with the 2-year time jump. But it still feels like there's so many answers that we need to get to figure out what this season is actually going to be.
Oh, for me, really, the what the F moment with this episode was seeing that, oh my God, Arvin Sloan is now in charge of one of the most profitable health companies in the country. What the hell? That guy is a snake in a suit. Right. He deserves to be buried in jail somewhere. Yeah. What the hell?
I know.
So that really, really ticked me off to no end. And when Sydney went into his office and almost took his neck off, I was a very happy man. But, now I can actually talk about what I wanted to talk about last episode. When Vaughn tells Sydney that 2 years have passed back in the hotel room in China, she plays it off as being, oh my God, what happened? But she actually attacks him. And when she tries to run away from him, she gets shot with a knockout dart in an alley. Mm-hmm. And when she turns around, the look on her face is a look of betrayal confusion and utter like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? You know? And I thought in that particular moment, it's a really short moment. It's really small. But I figured in that particular moment, I don't think Jennifer Garner's been better. Because the look of confusion and betrayal on her face is real for my money.
Yeah.
And I just felt so bad for her. And, then, and the other thing is when she turns around, Bond comes out of the shadows. So it is a well-directed scene as well. But I just felt so bad for her. And like you mentioned, us as an audience member, we're sort of going along this journey with Sydney, figuring out what's new and figuring out what exactly went wrong here.
Yeah.
What happened over the 2 years that she's reportedly been dead.
Right.
I really find it interesting that when she wakes up and as she's discovering what has gone down, she has an interesting scar on her midsection that I hope we're going to address at some point,
right,
in this season to figure out how the hell this happened, who put it there, why they put it there, what was the whole point of this, which I'm sure we'll get.
Yeah,
but I feel that this episode, more than any other, really plays into the JJ motif of the mystery box.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, big time.
Yeah, because we're presented with a situation and we are almost given no answers whatsoever. Yeah. We're giving none. And the funniest thing here is that the only one in the CIA or so that we know of that really worried about Sydney and tried to track down her whereabouts was her father, right?
Yeah.
And that caused him to lose his freedom and lose his life and be locked up in prison. And it's really interesting to me that Vaughn didn't do that.
Right? You know what I thought was awesome is that when this happens and, Sydney finds out Vaughn's married and she's kind of shell-shocked and she talks to her dad and he says, I knew you were not dead. Like, I just couldn't accept that was what had happened. So I kept looking for everything. And she says, Vaughn got married. And he says, yeah, Vaughn was just a boy who was never good enough for you. And, it sums up how Jack has been feeling and it reveals some truth to Sydney. And in a total J.J. Abrams moment where she could dwell on that for like a couple of episodes, she doesn't. Just much like in the first episode of Felicity, where, Felicity has followed Ben. And then there's that scene where she goes and tells him, like, I followed you here, you idiot. Sydney says to Vaughn, like, how freaking dare you just accept that I was dead? Like, how? I don't understand, because if it was me, I would have kept looking anyway. I would have known until I had proof, like, I would have not given up. So the fact that you gave up and moved on, like, who do you think you are? Like, you are not who I thought you were. And that is one of those things that they could have dragged out for like a lot of episodes. Just like, I thought watching Felicity that they were going to drag out that, Felicity came after Ben. But no, JJ tackles it head on in Act 5 and just has the main protagonist say, like, this is bullshit because of this. And I thought that was great because Jennifer Garner kills it. And Vartan, plays it as good as he can because it's just such an awkward moment where she's right. Like, how could he have moved on without seeing the body is the thing that she's kind of saying. That we're spies, right? Like, if a spy just disappears, chances are they aren't dead. There's probably something going on. And my own father knew that there was something going on and you didn't listen. You just moved on. Like, you're not who I thought you were, which was a huge moment for Sid and Vaughn's relationship, because even if things were to get patched over, I don't think it'll ever be the same. And just the fact that they dive right into that only a day after she's been back was huge.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that the way that Jennifer Garner performs that scene when she confronts Vaughn and tells him basically how much of an a-hole he's been.
Mhm.
It's interesting that you mentioned that she says, "I would have never given up. I would have never accepted it." Right.
Mhm.
And I imagine I don't know anyone who works in the CIA, although I wish I did,
Right.
because I kind of appreciate those people that protect us and do all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that those people, when somebody goes missing, they don't generally quit, right?
Right.
They triple check and they check as many sources as they can before they declare someone dead,
Right.
right? So to add on to your point, it was really distressing to me and really disturbing to me that Vaughn just quit,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And well, this is going to make me sound dickish, but I think I need to defend myself before I say this. See, this is going to make me sound really bad,
Go for
but
it.
I kind of understand where Vaughn is coming from
Mhm.
a little bit because he buried her. So we're told he mourned for her and he moved on. Right. But with that being said, I would think that the type of relationship that they were building up to this point, that Vaughn wouldn't be able to just do that. But the fact that he did shows what he really kind of thought about the relationship, which makes me, which begs the question: did he really love Sydney, or what was the deal with that?
Right. And I do like that, you can understand the side of the coin where, like, of course he had to move on. She was gone for so long. But then there's also the other side, like I said, where, we've already had Irina, who Sydney thought was dead, come back from the dead because there was never a body. So, like, the precedent is there that Vaughn should have known without actually having confirmation that she is dead, like, that he should have done more digging.
I just really didn't. I mean, like I've already said, I kind of had his back there for a second, but a second later, I was like, "You don't deserve her after all, you little, you traitor."
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Good. You deserve somebody better than that guy in a suit. You deserve Will. Forget about that guy.
And we still don't know because they said, oh, Will didn't die, and it's like, he didn't. Well, how did he not? And they haven't actually shown us yet what's actually happened with Will. And there's a funny moment that totally sums up sort of the whole premise of the mystery box, where Dixon says to Sydney when she starts saying, like, is Will dead? Like, what happened? Where's the body? All this. And Dixon says, I know you have a million questions. And Sydney says, I have a lot more than a million questions. I wish I only had a million questions. And that's kind of the whole mystery box thing, is every time you get another question answered, there's another million questions.
And in that scene in particular is when we find out that Kendall, aka John Locke, no, he's not really John Locke, but
That's why he has disappeared off the show, is because he literally went on Oceanic A15 and is hanging out on the island.
Basically, he went on a vacation to Hawaii and he crashed in a plane.
Yeah.
So, but back to my point before this podcast gets completely thrown off the rails. It's that scene where Sydney tells Dixon that, I wish I just had a few questions instead of a million questions. It's that scene that we find out that Dixon got himself a little promotion in the time that Sydney's been missing or presumed dead or whatever the hell she's been doing. And I found it really interesting that he got that promotion, and I would love to learn more about what he did to get that promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Because the CIA doesn't promote just for being a loyal member of the team for X amount of years. You have to do something very significant to be in a position of being in charge of an entire unit. To be in charge of an entire unit, I would think.
Yep.
So I am interested to see if that's something that he will explain or something that we'll find out about in later episodes. Also, I did find very interesting the sort of MacGuffin that they framed this episode around, that the CIA was expecting one of their agents to bring them a computer chip with the program of this super secret stealth sort of missile thing.
Yep.
That could lay waste to God knows how many areas of ground, whatever, if it was deployed. So I did like that little MacGuffin that JJ decided to film the episode around. As a matter of fact, I really like the scene where the quote-unquote bad guy of this episode goes to get the agent who has the chip on a train. Yep. And he shoots this woman who's sitting right next to the agent who has the chip. He shoots her twice in the back. I mean, in the front and in the back.
Right.
And I was like, dude, really? We just met this nice little extra woman, and you just had to shoot her? Right? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what Ken Olin was thinking when he was directing this, but the way that he focused in on her, right? Yep. Listening to her CD, the way that she flips the CD around.
Yep.
I was like, this chick might be something, she might be not an extra, but,
right.
A second later, she's just shot and dead. So I was like, God, then why did you focus on her? So, I mean, he didn't focus on her forever.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a red herring misdirect.
Yeah, it's a misdirect, and it's a misdirect that I really fell for, and I was kind of disappointed. Well, yeah, I was kind of like, did you have to do that? I thought she was going to do something else. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I did like is the enclosure that this spy put the chip in. He put it like in this classic coin thing.
Yep.
That I thought was very, 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 very spy-ish.
Big time.
My favorite thing about this episode is seeing Sydney trying to catch up and learning that her father is in jail. Mm-hmm. And when she goes to see her father, she basically tells him, I'm going to do something to get you out of jail. Yep. Right? And what she does, I will kid you not, is very reminiscent of what she does in the very, very first episode of Alias. What does she do when the Alliance tries to kill her? Right? What does she do? Does she run like her father wanted her to, or does she walk into the Alliance and shoot Sloan in the head and the show will be over? No. What she does is she gets the one thing that she has to get, so her bosses will start to believe her, and she can start to figure out what in the world is going on here.
Yeah.
Right? So I really like the parallel that JJ did by basically putting Sydney behind the 8 ball again and seeing her work out and try to track down the guy who had this chip, and seeing her tracking down the her sources. Yep. was really fun, because like she said to Weiss after they almost died, yep. Her sources are 2.5 years old, and seeing her having that sequence with her on the phone tracking down her sources and then constantly being denied was really great. But my favorite moment of this season of this episode, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say season, but when she finally tracks down the guy who has a chip, and she just basically finds him, stands in the middle of the road and shoots him. I mean, doesn't shoot him, but she basically plays chicken with a car. Yeah. That was very reminiscent of another spy show, Person of Interest, when a character in that show basically plays chicken with the car and shoots it. I was kind of, wait a minute. Didn't her source say that he had a bulletproof car? So what kind of gun does she have? Because when she shoots the car basically blows up.
It blows up.
And I'm like, dude, first of all, you didn't shoot the gas tank. You shot the engine. So that gun must have some kick to it, because the car blows up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time.
I really liked that entire sequence, and I like the fact that JJ sort of paid homage to the pilot in that Sydney had to get this thing to prove her word to the CIA in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just could say one other thing, that guy from the NSA is an idiot. I hate that guy, and he's been on the show for 2 seconds, and I already hate him. And I can't, I don't know what's gonna happen with him. You probably do, but I would be very, very happy if Sydney he punches him in the face at one point. but I don't think that's gonna happen. But when Sydney is reunited with her father again, and then the very, very last scene of this episode, when her father shows, when her father goes to Sydney and tells her, "I knew you were alive, and this is how I know." Mm. When we find out that Sydney has basically been a sleeper agent for these past 2 years, and she's basically an assassin, and she basically kills a guy with a box cutter.
Right.
I mean, that is seriously effed up, man. To kill somebody with a box cutter.
That's Gus Fring stuff right there.
Yeah. So no lie, I thought that.
Yeah.
But I thought that this episode was very well done. I loved the mystery box element of it. Like I said, I like the fact that Marshall and for lack of a better word, Megan. Sorry, I'm bad with actors' names. If you want to know actors' name, people, that's what we have. That's what we have Matt on the show for. I'm not your guy when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that they're in a relationship now, and I really like the fact that she has commitment issues.
Yeah.
Because that's something like that's a total Megan thing.
It is big time.
Like Megan would totally have a problem with commitment. But it is kind of funny to me that Megan and Sean are in a show together.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of funny. I don't know if you feel that way or if you get a funny vibe.
Oh yeah, I think it's awesome that they both work at the CIA now. Like it's just awesome.
It's funny. No, but I thought this episode did a great job of introducing us to the world. Or what the world has become in these past 2 years. Also, we do get our introduction into the next big bad of the series, which I'm interested to learn more about this organization to find out what they're all about. And I listen. This is something that I don't want to happen, but I really hope that they are not another code name for the Alliance. Mm-hmm. Or I really don't want them to be another code name for a group that Sloan is secretly financing or whatever. By the way, Sloan needs to die as quickly. He's really getting on my nerves. He is, God help, God give me strength to put up with that guy, because I do remember some stuff about what's going to happen as we move forward here, and. I'm not going to be happy with some of the stuff that happens, because I did remember some stuff as far as Sloan coming back into the fold and playing nice with everyone. And I loved this first season 3 episode of Alias. I would give this episode a really, really strong 7. What would you give this episode, Matt, if you had to rate it?
I'd say about a 7 too. It sets the groundwork for what this season can be, filled us up on a lot of the information that we needed to know from the past 2 years, but still has a lot of questions unanswered. I was worried that they were going to be doing with Jack when she visits him and he's in prison, that it was going to be like the first half of the season was going to be, he was like an arena person where she would have to go visit and try and get information from him and use it. But luckily by the end of this episode, Jack's out of jail because Sydney blackmailed Lindsay and said, like, I'm going to freaking destroy this thing if you don't get my dad out of jail. And Kurt Fuller does have a very punchable face as the new, dick in a suit. And that guy, that's kind of his wheelhouse. Although he plays a really funny stoner mortician on Psych. But usually he plays like a guy that you just want to punch. And so when Sydney is about to torch that ship if she doesn't get her way, and he's like, you're not going to do it. And she's like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then Jack's out. I thought that was great. And then, I think the thing that makes this episode really strong is just at the very end where Jack shows Sydney that tape and she's basically just murdering a guy. So it really raises the question, what happened to Sydney in those 2 years? We've caught up with everybody else and found out what they were doing in those 2 years. But where was Sydney? Who was she working for? Why doesn't she remember? This born identity kind of stuff is the stuff that they're going to fill in, that even though I've seen the show, I don't remember like some of the small ins and outs of it, because I watched it, season 3, I watched as it aired back in 2003. So it's been almost 17 years since I've seen any of these episodes. So I can't wait to dig into the rest.
That was my last year of junior high. Good Lord, that was a long time ago.
It was.
God, Lord. Yeah, by the way, and the other mystery that we don't know is where the hell is Will?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's still up in the air. Like, what is going on there? And in this episode, we still don't know who did Vaughn marry, and is that person going to come into the fold in any way or not?
Yeah, I was curious about that, because I do look, people, as happy as I am right now for their relationship status being on hold, because for you regular listeners, you will know that I'm not digging Felicity. I mean, Jesus Christ. See, I have Felicity on the brain. Sorry. I wasn't digging Vaughn and Sydney. You people know that. But I do know that they do reconcile and they do get back together, and they even have a kid at some point, if I'm remembering correctly. But
you might be. You might be.
I probably am. Of which you would know if I was or not. You bad friend. You're holding secrets. I did like the fact that JJ decided to listen. For those of you who don't care about the Sydney Vaughn relationship, I'm going to put that on ice for a little while, and I'm going to let them sort of find their way back to each other, if that's even possible. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what this new organization is about. I'm really excited to see Sloan be dropped out of a window, hopefully someday.
Yeah.
God, I mean, I hate that, man. But you, Matt, you're probably a little bit less in the hate department. I mean, I think I'm the guy that holds all the Sloan hate in this podcast. Would I be right about that?
I enjoy Sloan. Like, I hate him, but I love to hate him.
No,
I think Ron Rifkin just does such a good job with it that, like, it's amazing.
No, I mean, look. Well, all due respect, when I say I hate Sloan, I don't want it to be misconstrued. I think the actor who plays Sloan does a great job at playing his role, because the key function of any actor is for you to get for them to get you invested in their character, whether you love them or hate them, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a grand achievement on the actor standpoint for him to get me to hate his character this much.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of work. And I think that says a whole lot about his acting chops as an actor. But I'm really interested to see where the season goes and what's the deal with this new organization. And I have a theory about how Sydney got sort of blacked out for those past 2 years. If you could just go with me for a second here, people, and just let me play this out. What if the experiments that Jack was doing to Sydney back in previous seasons, somebody picked up that work and made it work and made it work in a way that the fact that Sydney was already sort of programmed to be suggested, to be affected by hypnotized, right. The fact that she is somewhat suggestible to that programming made it easier for the person, whoever did whatever made it easier for the person who actually kidnapped Sydney and did surgery on Sydney, and for some reason put Sydney in the middle of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm of the mind that whoever did whatever they did to Sydney, it has some connection to that experiment, Project Christmas, that
Yep.
that,
Her
that
as
Jack
a
was
child, for sure.
was Jack that Jack was behind. So you probably know what the hell it is, so I won't even ask you.
It's a good
But
guess.
but when you first saw this show, I think this is a question for you. When you first saw this show so many moons ago, what did you think? What were your theories as to what was going on with Sydney and her time lapse?
Yeah, I still at this point, wasn't sure, but I felt like because that Project Christmas stuff had come back at the end of season 2, that there was a chance it was going to rear its head again in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right, guys. So I think that'll wrap it up for this edition of Radio 815, our review of Alias, Season 3, Episode 1, entitled The Two. Just in case you have any questions for us or you want to get in contact with us to tell us how awesome we are, you can reach out to us on Twitter just by using the hashtag Radio815. If we ever get any questions on there or any suggestions on the show or anything at all, we'll read them on the air and we'll give you a shout out on the air. But with all that being said and out of the way, Matt, if the good people want to chat with you about Alias or whatever, or where in the hell Director Kendall is, P.S. guys, he's on an island with a bunch of other people. Yep. Matt, where can the good people find you and chat with you about whatever they want to chat about?
Hit me up on Twitter at Matt Crandall.
All right, guys. So if you guys want to chat with me, you can basically find me in the same place, just at Creek Fanatic 88. So with all that being said and out of the way, for my co-host Matt Crandall, I have been Marcelo Inestroza, and as I often say, we'll talk back soon.